Okay, folks, coming up. Did you know that men can have orgasms, multiple orgasms? Stay tuned. Dagny is going to tell us all about it. Dagny, welcome to the show. It's been, how long have we been trying to get each other to talk to each other? It's been a while.
Well, yeah, I guess something happened with a couple times, and then it was rescheduled.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you also talked to my dear friend, Dr. Kat Cotter.
yes, I have. Very interesting person to talk to.
Oh, she is.
So,
Yeah.
tell me about what are we going to talk about today? For some reason, I have something that's related to sex. Am I off target here?
Well, sexual energy.
Okay.
It would be more, I mean, which is actually the life force with everything everything is energy. We know
Uh-huh.
that. That's what the great Nicholas Tesla said. You know, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. And
Uh-huh.
but no one seems to call it this energy. What is it? It is creation, so it is life force. So it is got to do with our sexual energy.
Because I just know based on my own self that that emotion, that energy is very powerful. I mean, it is I think it's probably the strongest energy that I have even at this age. So there's something to that, right?
Yeah, and even in that book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
I mean, that book had one chapter on sexual transmutation.
Yeah. So what is it that are you helping people then develop that energy? Is that where you're coming from?
I think that this is a country that I don't. I mean, I don't know if people understand that this country was built on Puritans that were totally um, against. I mean, all they were doing was for procreation only. So there is a lot of prudishness to here, but it's that double edge, or actually the pendulum, where on the other side of uh, of blockages and of suppressing the sexual energy is that other side of obsession and that craziness. So this is what's going on, but it doesn't seem like once people get balanced, they meet in the middle, they realize that this sexual energy is sacred, you know. And nowadays in America, what we don't see anything sacred. We don't even see, I mean, each other is sacred, or ourselves is sacred. And this is really sad. I mean, but then look what happened. I mean, look what's going on here. So this is a thing, and I see this. It saddens me when I see men in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s and up that are relying on Western medicine that will never ever give them what they need, because Western medicine doesn't do anything to do with sexuality. It's only Eastern. It's only Taoism, Tantra. Those are the only two really that really teach men. Taoism is there's books written by doctors in Taoism that show what a man can do with this energy and how he can harness it and bring it up through his whole body. In Mantak Chia's book, Multi-Orgasmic Man, he says, in a real sense, if a man stockpiled this energy, he could light a small city for a year.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
but men don't
interesting.
see this. See, they keep
Yeah.
thinking it as you losing it, and they keep looking outside for the answer. A younger woman, three women, you know, I mean, whatever, you know, I mean, and what that's doing is it's externally, they're believing that what's out there is what turns them on, and that's not true. It's all inside. It's all inside.
Interesting. And I think I happen to agree with you on that. One of the things that you said to me I want to address and get your opinion is balance. I don't think being completely balanced is, again, I'm going to talk to you from somebody who does weight training, bodybuilding.
Yeah, I do weight training too.
Okay. If you're completely balanced, you're not going to get the kind of results that you should. You have to be slightly imbalanced. Now, I don't know if that's a very good, I'm making a very good correlation with what you're saying, but when you're talking about balancing somebody, because you're saying that the opposite of the sexual energy is, we're talking about men suppressing, so that turns into an obsession. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I'm not saying men in particular, because obviously when it's remember, we're talking about this energy. We'll call it sexual energy, but really I rather call it life force, because now you can apply it to the world. We're talking the way that people repress that this life force causes, and balance, you're right, might not be a good word, because the pendulum, goes extreme from one way to the other way. And it's not so much, maybe harmony is a better word, or more harnessed or connected, or, where that you feel, I feel men are not grounded because of what's going on in this country. And many men have said to me, and I don't know if you know about Dr. Jordan Peterson,
yes, I've heard of him.
You know how incredible he is for men. And he talks about, they interview him. A lot of these women interview him, and he does such research. So they'll say, what do you mean men have it so good in this country and everything? And he says, well, testosterone these days is a bad word. Eating meat is like, it's supposed to be horrible. And the results are showing that I see men almost every day, I swear. I was in a restaurant, and this guy was standing next to me, a baby boomer, maybe a guy in a senior, maybe in his 60s. He's standing next to me, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I look at him, and I go, "What are you sorry for?" He goes, he didn't know what to say. He goes, "Well, I was in your way." I go, "You weren't in my way. So what were you sorry for?" And he was like, he laughed nervously. And I said, "You know what?" And by that time, two other young guys were by him, and they were listening. And I said, "You know what? Every time you say you're sorry, your testosterone goes down and your estrogen goes up."
I believe it. And that causes inflammation, by the way. You probably know that. Yeah, you know that.
So I'm saying that men, and there's these books, David Dita, the way of the superior man. And I mean, but I always would say, and over 2 decades, I've been teaching men, couples, I mean, all kinds of men. By the way, men are not like women, where women, they spew, I was sexually abused when I was 5, and they write books about it and everything. Awful things happen to men. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah, internalize it. They're talking about testosterone. There's a stat that I saw before. Nowhere in time in our history has the testosterone levels been so low among our young children. It's gotten like way, way worse.
Yep. And also the sperm count for men.
Yeah, exactly.
Way down.
Exactly.
Well, we don't have to talk about, why there is something to that really is, but we don't need to get, because I'm really out there. I am not politically correct. So, that there is something to that really why there is something to that, the feminization, or I like to say the pussification of the modern man.
That's the truth. That really is. Yeah.
And that doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't even serve the woman, even though these women, I'm putting together a membership site, and I only want the men and the women that appreciate men, not these women that want that kind of man.
Right. Yeah. I think,
They don't really deep down believe me, but
yeah. Yeah.
they,
Right.
they, you know, and men are like chameleons. They're chameleons. You guys are chameleons. You will adapt to whatever. And that's, it's a beautiful trait, but it's not really good. Like I would see men that were married 20, 30 years and I'd go, well, do you have an intimate relationship? And they'd say, well, intimacy, what do you mean? Well, I mean, do you touch each other? Do you hug? Do you kiss more than 10 seconds? Do you make love, or do you have sex? So many men would say, we just have sex. How
Right.
sad is that? You don't make love when you're with someone 20, 30 years. And they would go, oh, yeah, my wife doesn't really want it anymore. And see, they would adapt. But in adapting, Leo, they suppress
Right.
that energy. They push it down. And then what
Right.
does it cause?
Yeah.
Prostate cancer, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
Anger, all kinds
yeah.
of things.
Yeah. There's definitely a rebound effect from that, and not a good one. Something happened to me it was quite a while ago, and I just thought this was telling. I'm a gentleman still. I'm the old school guy. I open up doors for women, even for men, but I mean, always for a woman, I'll open the door. I opened the door for a woman one time. She got pissed about that. It was like, what? You don't think I can open my own door?
I know. I know.
That's just that sign of the times, I think, maybe, huh?
I know, but well, that wasn't, and that what I love that, because see, but women also, that extreme, they're wanting to be more masculine because they feel that is what gets things done. But in the universe, in Taoism, it's the yin and the yang, and it's not that one is better. Men, yes, their energy is more fixed. You guys can do maybe, I've heard even a doctor, one time I was doing these big conferences, and the doctor, I was asking him something, and he was writing something down. He goes, I can only do one thing at a time,
Yeah.
and women, we can do many things, but that's got to do because we have the gift of childbirth and we have
Right.
to.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but men are they can be so focused, and women, I think women just don't understand. I didn't understand until I got into working with men and appreciating what what they endure, really, what they endure.
Yeah,
I
you got to
mean,
put
and
yourself. You have to put yourself in other people's shoes to really get a sense of that. And one of the things that happened to me, because you've heard before, men are from Mars and women are from whatever. It's that book. That the point is we speak different languages, and I actually, in my line of work, being a personal trainer, especially early on, most of my clientele have always been women, and there's reasons for that. But the point I'm going to make is that being around women actually taught me a lot, because in order for me to be able to relate to them, I had to understand their language to some degree. And so being around you guys actually made me a lot better trainer, because I could understand your language. Otherwise, I would say, there's so many times where it's just like, and I still do today, I just don't understand how you were thinking about that, as a female. It's just like totally different language, and I don't get it sometimes.
well, now, if I may speak about trainers, I notice I come from working out at Gold's Gym in Santa Monica
Yeah.
with all the big boys
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the day when everyone from Austria was coming to Gold's Gym in Venice because Schwarzenegger, I guess he
Right.
wanted to be famous,
Sure.
and all of that. So I had the opportunity, oh my gosh, to see them all, and actually even be friends with some of them, um, and I noticed that never at that gym, um, the trainers would train the people. They wouldn't be talking to them like their best friend, the gossip. Fast forward years and years when corporations took over the gyms. I'll go to the gym and it'll be irritating, Leo, because this person will be training a woman and he'll be talking about all the gossip stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, you know, you got to focus in what you're doing. I don't want to talk to someone
Right. Yeah.
when I,
Yeah.
so what do you
Yeah.
think of, I mean, because in the prisons, I'm focused on what I'm doing, on my breathing, on all of that, because that's what at Gold's Gym, that's what they did,
Yeah. I came
I'm
through.
talking the original one. And when,
No, no, no. I know exactly what you're talking about because I was introduced to Gold's Gym back in the '80s, late
yes,
'80s. Yeah,
yes,
late '80s. I don't know if you remember in Venice Beach there was a hotel called Marine Pacific Hotel. You remember that?
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I lived there when I was training with Tom Platz. I don't know if you know who he is, the Golden Eagle.
yes. Oh my
Yes. I was at Gold's Gym all the time training, and I understand 100% what you mean. Compared to the atmosphere today, it's awful. It's really kind of sad in a way, but that's just
Because
kind of
I
the way
think
it's
the trainers they think that they're going to keep that client.
right.
And I mean, and I see the person, they're talking about their aunt dying, and here they are working out. I don't think that's a good match.
No, it's a bad thing that's going on there, but it is what it is. I haven't been there in there for a while because of that. It's just it got to the point where I just didn't. I just it made me sad because I thought about and I remember the good old days. The golden era was something special, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger would be Van Gogh's ear. Remember that? That
Oh
it
yeah.
was an all night, and he'd come in there with his massive arms, with three women on one arm and three on the other.
Oh my God! If he did that now, he'd be
I
ridiculed.
know.
He'd be ridiculed to death. Let me ask you. Let's move into the. I want to find out how do you fix then men? How do you fix somebody's energy from the inside out? Because one of the things about bodybuilding and fixing people, like what I do in my business, I help people fix themselves on different levels. Whether you're somebody who is a bodybuilder to somebody who's just wanting to get in a better shape and feel good about yourself. It's always about building from the inside out. And this is what you're talking about. So tell me, what kind of tools do you give the clientele, your men? What kind of tools do you give to them to get them on the right path again? If I'm asking the right question.
Well, just like what you were saying about your training, you know very well that you have to meet them where they are. And
Okay.
that
What?
sometimes might be really not, in other words, and then again, remember, okay, so if it's a man, let's take baby boomer men and senior men, that have really, they've lost a lot of their passion,
Mm-hmm.
and remember, if you take a cork, the corks naturally float. But if you push it down, well, I mean, a cork weighs nothing. All right, then let's even do something bigger. A beach ball, if you push it down, long enough, it's going to make your arm tired. So
Mm-hmm.
so the same analogy would be about the sexual energy. If it can power a city for a year, if a man stockpiled it, imagine what it's doing to him physically when he's repressing it and holding it down.
Right.
And
Right.
and then just like I give analogy, I always give them analogies of, like, if you bought a new house and you bought a brand new hose and you hooked it up in the back, by the garage, and I mean the water pressure would be amazing. It would be so amazing. But as the years went by, you would notice your water pressure was less and less and less. But and then you decide one day, oh, I'll get a new hose. But if you went behind the garage, you would notice that it had a crimp in the hose. So, and this is what happens with men. They listen to Western medicine and they go, oh, well, it's just, I hear men all the time. They go, well, I am this age, and
Yeah.
my doctor, what does a Western doctor have to give you? Viagra or
Yeah.
Cialis or whatever, right? That's
Yeah.
all he has to give you. And he can give it to you even if you're 40. I know this guy one time, a client I had, he was in his 40s. He was on Viagra. He had a horrible experience. He had to go to the hospital. Um, and I said he was going through a divorce. His mother died, and his wife, and he was fired from his job. And I said, the doctor never asked you that? I mean, of course he was going to be having problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So first I teach them breathing. I know that sounds crazy, but you know that they're not breathing right to begin with. They're shallow breathing.
Now, is that something?
Iceman, Wim Hof. Wim Hof.
Now, is that something that is learned, obviously, or how do you? How do you re-break?
One way is they need to know where they're breathing from. So one hand on the chest, one hand on your belly, because most shallow breathers are just breathing from a small portion of their chest.
Mm-hmm.
It's locked up. It's in fascia in the body is like, oh my gosh, there's so much of that. And what happens is Wilhelm Reich wrote about that, the armor, the invisible armor that men and women have. And it's not like a warrior that puts on all this armor and goes to war. What's the first thing he does when he comes back to his family? He takes off the armor. But men in this society, they can't take their armor off. It's invisible. It's already locked into the fascia.
Yeah. So it's like, is there a certain way that you need to breathe? I've heard breathe through your nose.
From your belly. Which most people, they can't even do it. So all you do is just put your hand on your belly and breathe in and let your belly extend out like a balloon, and then breathe. When you breathe out, you push, you kind of snap your belly back. So it's, so all of a sudden it's like flat, it's sunken in.
Right.
And most people, if you notice, they'll take a deep breath, sigh, but then their exhales like that instead of, I mean, that alone is transforming.
Yeah. Okay. So then what does that actually do? Does that relieve certain stress that you're withholding, or is that actually bringing more air into the body? Because it's really important for you to have enough air in your system, saturation of oxygen. Is that tying into that, or what is it, the main reason that you tell somebody to breathe like that?
Well, first of all, Leo, that you can exist and your brain isn't functioning completely, but people every day are surviving, not thriving, and you can just breathe barely and still be existing. And that has a lot to do with what's going on in America and as people get older. So, once they start taking these breaths, and it's look what the Iceman can do. Wim Hof can get people to go into that freezing water in the Netherlands and not get hypothermia. I mean, that's unbelievable. And what it can do with Taoism and Tantra, it is so powerful that the breath changing the breath, different breaths, and having a man do that when he's right at the peak, if you don't mind me saying, of ejaculation, not orgasm, because they're different. And he can actually go up instead of fall down. That's how powerful the breath is.
Okay, so how do you, again, so I understand now the methodology, but what is the regimen of that? I mean, do you tell somebody to do that on a certain times? Is it so many times a day? Because in my line of work, repetition is the mother of skill, and that's not anything that's new. Is that the same thing with what you're talking about?
Well, there's what is it? Oh my gosh, I think it's 26,000 breaths we take a day, or something, and 50,000 thoughts, something like that.
So,
yeah. And so imagine 50,000 thoughts. Most of them are all the same habitual thoughts. And as far as breathing, those breaths, they're mostly all shallow because of everything that's happening during the day. So I just start them with just for them to notice their breath, noticing it, even noticing it.
Yeah, that's becoming aware.
Because most men don't breathe when they're ready to ejaculate. They hold their breath.
Interesting. I've never paid attention to that. I think I will the next time I do this.
Believe me, I mean, I've worked with lots and lots of couples and everything, and men, they don't even realize they're holding their breath. they're and the woman, I mean, I'm sure you've seen a woman when she has an orgasm, we don't hold our breath. We're like, we're breathing.
Interesting.
If a man did that alone, he would start to have fall on or ongoing orgasm, which is different than ejaculation. It's from a different part of your body.
So what happens with the person that is having trouble getting it up? Let's just use layman terms.
Yeah.
How because I can tell you over the years we all have, as a male, we all have that where that one time it didn't work. Now, I don't know about the rest of the males that are out there, but I'm going to be very honest about that shit. That's like a terrorist coming into your brain and they reside there for the rest of the time. You're very fragile. Okay, I'm very fragile. I don't know if everybody's like this, but it's always there. So much of this is mental. Now, the breathing that you're talking about, how does that work for somebody who has got a mental problem? Now, again, assuming that they're eating properly, they're not drinking a boatload of alcohol. How is the breathing going to help that? Or do you teach things in addition to that, other techniques?
Well, what you're saying is, I would say that, okay, I know that you call it mental, but mental resides in the brain more. It's the emotional. Even Wim Hof talks about our feelings. People forgot how to feel in their body because when you're thinking, and you're right. So all men have gone through that. In fact, I used to say, I would think it was a compliment when I was with a man and we just started a relationship. I felt it was a compliment. I would tell him, I feel just, wow. I feel that this is such a compliment that you are so nervous that you are having a problem. Then it doesn't stick. But most women, come on, they could get upset. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's just, I'm sorry, but I have a few close friends of women, but you know what? European women, they know about men, but women in America, if a woman decides she doesn't want sex anymore, that's too bad for her husband. And if he tries to find it outside, what is she going to do? Take him for all his money or whatever she can get. I mean, this is ridiculous. Woman doesn't even know how to. Most women in America, they don't know how to teach a man how to be able to relax. So yes, it can be where now it went into the body and now he is going to think it's going to start happening. Self-fulfilled prophecy. It's going to start happening. But if he just started breathing and even visualization, bringing that in before, and of course, if he had an understanding woman, so, and of course, if that started to happen, the best thing for him to do is to start to self-pleasure himself, which is different than masturbation. Masturbation, then there's self-pleasure, and then there's a higher level of self-love. It's a very difficult level to get for a man because men weren't taught to love themselves. I mean, think about it. It wasn't even an intimate act when the boy just started to masturbate. And that had a lot to do with how it is with his life. Because if he felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get caught, or if he even got caught, and some young boys did by their mother. And I mean, and it wasn't like she was saying, oh, son, that's a good thing. Mostly it was really like, something's wrong with you. And, you're going to
put that thing away.
Yeah. I mean, and that can traumatize.
Yeah.
And, and women, when we were young, we actually were intimate. We had to be intimate, whether we're sticking our finger in there or whatever. We had to be intimate because we felt it in our body. It was intimate.
Yeah. But tell me about this, because this is what's happened to me. When I was younger, it was all about, I cared for the woman. Okay. Back then I used to work in nightclubs. And and as a bouncer, we were always busy that way, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
But the difference being younger and doing that, back then it was just like keeping score. There wasn't that much feeling, and it always worked. But as I gotten older, it seems more important to be able to do that, the act of, with feelings, somebody that you love, somebody that you have feelings for, and less about, I just want to screw you and then move on. Why does that happen? Does that happen with men as we get older?
Well, I think, I'm sure you've heard that in a lot of spiritual societies, in fact, in everyone, even with the Indians and all of that, there was this thing that happens with a man. I would say in his 40s, sometime later, depends on how many distractions, how many toys he has. And
Mm-hmm.
then he goes down that tunnel, that dark tunnel. Now, whether he comes out of it to the light is really up to the man, what he's focusing on, maybe even his woman and everything. Because in this society, as you know, there's so many distractions, you might never come
Yeah.
out of that dark tunnel
Yeah.
to see the light, where that you start to realize that the more that you are feeling in your body, I mean, ejaculation lasts a measly 20 seconds. Even when you're 18, it can't last more than 20 seconds, because it's a series of people. Men understood it's a series of contractions. I teach them. It's a series of contractions. You can't have 50 contractions. So you have, let's say, 25 when you're, in your 20s. But as the years go by, because of all your blockages, because of the cranks and all of that, you start having less. Many men in their 50s, 60s, 70s say, "Oh my gosh, it's like, a couple seconds." But they don't know that they can elongate that, they can change it, because before ejaculation, if you can even, I know it's difficult to understand unless you experience it, but before ejaculation is the orgasm. Because of course, there's a liquid ejaculation, of course, to procreate, but a man doesn't need that anymore. He wants to use it for his own body. He wants to rejuvenate his body. Keeps spilling it, and for what reason? He's
Mm-hmm.
taken the life out of his own body. The Taoists say the woman that entices her man to ejaculate is the enemy.
Interesting. I never heard this before. One of the things that's helped me, and again, I'm big into mindset. Mind is the most powerful thing, and
Yeah.
thought is the most powerful thing in the world, and it's harnessing that. And that's a huge challenge for me anyway. But one of the things I've noticed when I'm having trouble in that department, one of the things I've noticed is to really, once I just relax and once I focus on the female as opposed to focusing on my thing working, that changes the dynamic also.
Bingo. Yes,
Hey, I
exactly.
got a bingo out of this mother. Hey, but it's
Yes.
true.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
really
Yes.
really taking in how beautiful, because I think one of the most beautiful things in the world is a female body. I've said that before. And when I can turn the focus on just enjoying what I'm seeing in front of me and just really taking that in, all of a sudden it's like damn thing works again.
And then if you notice, you start relaxing more, and you start feeling these feelings, because remember, on a scale of 1 to 10, men seem to just focus on the 9 and the 10. And when they get to that point, they're so tense in their body. So, and then they're going down instead of going in a wave. But arousal is on a scale. It could
Yeah.
be a 1 or a 2, and men don't seem to pay attention to that. But when I teach them to pay attention to the 2s or the 3s or the 4s that you can get when you're out in public, seeing, well, I mean, it's not all the woman. It could be you being at a restaurant, and looking at your food, the way it's prepared and everything. That's all the sensualness. Sensuality is so important, and men really haven't been taught that. And
Yeah.
and a lot of women nowadays, look, they're not very sensual either. Not sexual, sensual.
Yeah. Interesting.
Do you
Uh,
know, in wild animals, they're always sensual. If you look at a wild animal, he never changes. It's always the way they walk, everything about them. Look at domesticated animals. Oh my gosh, they're barking all the time. It's like because they're paying attention to modern, men and women. And men, look, remember the days when men would just look at a woman and just, breathe in her essence, or her perfume, or those are all sensual, her senses, and or listen to her laugh and they loved her laugh or something. But now I notice men, they don't even look at you in the eye, and it's so sad.
Yeah. Do you think that all the stuff that you're talking about is a form of foreplay?
Absolutely. I would tell them, hey, I would go to restaurants when I lived in LA, Santa Monica, all those areas. And I
Yeah.
would go to restaurants, by myself. And these were nice restaurants. And I would just watch everyone. I had this game I would play. I would go, okay, are they married? Are they brother and sister? Are they roommates? Are they business partners? And Leo, I could barely sometime know, except for if they started talking, I could tell their husband and wife. I can tell you he's going to go home and he's not going to get anything because they weren't even looking at each other. And those were before the cell phones. But he was just, she was just babbling on and on about
Oh
whatever.
God.
Like, let's say
Yeah.
one instance, and the other ones, nothing, no touch, nothing. There was. I mean, here they were going to this wonderful dinner. We're not talking some cheap restaurant, and I would start to notice it was like, wow. And I would use that information to talk to my male clients and say, you're right. From the time you wake up, you got to do the foreplay.
Yeah, because I happen to think that's really that can be very powerful. I got to tell you something. This has to do with weight training, and I know this isn't going to sound weird to you, but
Nothing sounds weird to me, honey. Let me tell you.
my training that I do, because you're right about this energy. When I train, because I'm very passionate about the things that I do. I don't do things that I'm not passionate about. That's one of the things that has to be a part of anything that I do. And when I tied into that, how important that passion was, then I've always used that as a measuring stick. But when I'm training sometimes, Dagny, it doesn't happen all the time, but I have what I think is a damn orgasm from doing a workout, a particular set that I get. I get chills up and down my body, and I know it's like having some kind of a release, some kind of an orgasm when I train. And when I get to that point, and it happens more often than not because I'm real focused on what I do, there's nothing better, man.
Yeah, but see, it isn't. See, that's so. Then you see that it's not an ejaculation; it's a release of this energy because of your passion, which so many people are losing these days. And you're right. So it is. It's more. We call it in Taoism magnetic orgasm.
Yeah.
So you're feeling that it's going through your body, and don't you feel like amazing after the energy and everything?
Oh yeah, it's a real thing. But if you talk and say this to the average person, they think you're completely whacked out of your brain. But I'm telling you, it's an amazing. And I think I did a podcast. I have another podcast that I do. I talk about dancing with death, and what that really has more to do with is just simply pushing your body to the edge to get to that point. And again, it's not a reckless act or reckless move that I'm talking about. It's something that is contrived to some degree. It's calculated, but in order to get the most out of your body, you have to have a brush with death. In my opinion, I had a brush with death 10 years ago when I had 3 strokes in 3 weeks. That was a brush.
Oh my God.
That was a brush with death. I'm gonna tell you something. After that event, it was like a whole brand new. I had a whole different kind of clarity that I never had. I could have never had that, and in my case, unless I had this event. And now that doesn't mean that people have to go out here and have strokes to have this clarity. The point is, you get it like in when you're training in the gym. You got to push yourself to that edge. Your physiology, your mind and body, you have to push it to that edge, even to the point where it's scary. Because all of a sudden, when your senses are heightened, what that's telling me is that you push your physiology into fight or flight. And when that happens, your body senses a threat. But that can be a really good thing. I think that's what's missing in maybe it's today's society, is that you're not learning how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe it's just going up to that woman and talking to her and introducing yourself. Because I'll tell you what, I've been scared as hell to go do that. And I'm not going to die from it, but I've had that much, where I'm afraid to do that. And yet when I do something like that, oh my God, it's that same feeling that I get when I have that orgasm or whatever, that release in the gym. It's the same reaction. So I think as a human being, I think we need to push ourselves to that level, but not be reckless about it. In other words, don't chronically do that, but do it in a way that just heightens your senses.
I hear what you're saying. I have such passion when I work out. And I was at the gym the other day. I usually shut my mouth because, remember the days when you could walk up to people and say, oh, you might want to do it this way or something.
Yeah.
And they would so appreciate it. Now, well,
they're offended.
But I couldn't resist it. This woman, she was very overweight and she was a younger woman. And she was standing in front of the mirror doing bicep curls. And she was like, and I go, put some heart into it.
Yeah.
Put some passion into it.
Yeah.
I said, and you will end up loving it. And then I left. And she goes, oh, thank you. But, I don't know if she just said that, how people, or she's gonna, and I've never people ask me why, I work out, so hard. And it's like because because it's that passion. And I think I got that from, goals,
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started working out, I remember when someone said, oh, you're going to do this. I go, how long do I have to do this? Oh, you're going to do it for the rest of your life. I'm like, what? But now, you can't imagine not doing it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. If I don't do it, I'm not happy, to be honest with you. It's like, Arnold made a comment one time when they asked him, do you work out? He goes, well, yeah, don't you breathe every day? It's the same thing. It's the same mentality. And that's exactly, in my mind, that's exactly right. If I can't live my life, and I'm 67 years of age, and Dagny, I got to tell you something. I have never been this enthusiastic and this excited about tomorrow and about today, and I just find that is really, I'm lucky, but I can also say for those people that are listening, it doesn't just happen. You have to be a part of that process. And you have to, like I said, some of the things that we're talking about right now, it takes a certain amount of discipline, and you gotta be committed to that to a large degree. And if you don't do that, I'm sorry, you're going to fall way short of all the joy that you could have.
Right. But once again, when you ask me, what do they start with? We have to meet them where they are. And first they've got to regain passion. There has to be something that they're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, being on your phone and, all this texting and this stupid social media that, can make you, or to make, not maybe I'm not you and me, but that they can say something and it makes a person commit suicide. I mean, come on. This is crazy.
Yeah. What's happening? I saw some stat that said, even though it's like people are more isolated now than ever. And,
I know.
And a lot has to do with social media. So that says something. And if that's the case, for a lot of people, they have to take a real hard look at that in order to get on the right path. So people need, those kinds of people need somebody like you to help them, get on target. How important do you think in all this diet is? Do you talk about that with the people that you're trying to help or not?
Well, yeah, it has a lot to do with, there's a man who wrote The Warrior Diet. He's an ex-Israeli soldier. He's probably in his 70s by now. And he also wrote another book called Estrogen Dominant. And, men, I'm sorry, but men that are vegans and vegetarians and, they don't realize how important it is for them to have some meat. Dr. Saladino wrote the Carnivore Diet, and he went and lived with hundreds of people, and the way that they looked. We're talking, some of them were, I think, maybe 80 years old, 100. These were not decrepit people.
Right.
These were people doing chores and doing what they were supposed to do to help with their community. Look at now in this country.
No,
because big pharma, pharma got. But yes, and then men that are drinking these plastic bottles of water in 100 degrees weather in Vegas. That's where I am, and and they're drinking that, and they're saying, oh, and it's crappy water to begin with, in this crappy plastic. Water is a solvent. It's going to absorb whatever.
Right.
I know glass, they can do stainless steel, but and then they have to watch if they're going to eat meat. Are they eating meat that they're shooting them up and they're using corn estrogen?
Right.
I mean, even the fish, the farm raised. I mean, people have to know anything farm raised. The person that is feeding them what they decide based on how much money, I mean, this is the way it is. In the wild, it's a whole different thing.
Exactly. 95% of the people, I think I also saw this. Sometimes I don't know where I get my information, but I do remember this. Most people will die from inflammation. That's what's going to kill them in a lifetime. And you're talking exactly that example.
And so does Wim Hof. He talks about that inflammation being number one.
Yep. That's the number one thing. And there's so many things that we're doing to cause that. And like you said, in men, there's a high level of estrogen that's being produced by men. And that is a major problem for us.
I know. They're looking flabby.
Yeah.
I mean, if you notice, they're looking like a woman. If you look from the back,
Yeah.
And also they don't admire women. They're like, they talk to them without the, it's just, I mean.
The sizzle's not there. It's gone. The sizzle, the passion is not there.
And but they're listening to their doctor and social media and all this stuff in TV showing them that they do need help, which is all they have to do for one moment is ground themselves. What about grounded? Grounding, where grounding with Mother Earth, and her amazing energy. I do this every single morning, that red ruby cord coming down from your root chakra. I teach them that about the root chakra, because it's the root chakra, not the second chakra, the sexual chakra. It's not that. The blockage. See, they keep on thinking, okay, if I can't get erections, oh my gosh, I got to look at porno. I've got to have the right woman. I have to do this and that. When really the root chakra is just blocked. There's a crink in it. Get the crink out and boom, the energy is going to start moving. Yeah. I didn't say it was that easy, depending on the person, but obviously that depends where they are. And it also depends on their thoughts daily. I mean, it isn't an easy process, but I can tell you that every single man can have full body orgasm. He can have it for minutes like a woman. I'm telling you, he just has to do certain things and plus he was never told that ever. If he never opened up a Taoist book, even by a doctors, these Taoist books that are written by doctors, he would not know that. He wouldn't know that. And it's just, it's a sad thing. And the only person I find nowadays besides someone like you is Jordan Peterson, who understands the plight of the male and has a wonderful following, and he does have women too. I totally love what he says.
Yeah. To wrap our conversation up here, one of the things I talked about when I had my strokes, I've always been very enthusiastic about data. Not that I put a lot of stock into it, but it's a part of the overall, making the sort of decisions that I make. But I told my people what really bothered me when I had my strokes was I had to be willing to go out and look at the data that was out there and find out why people weren't making a better recovery. Only 10% of the people who have a stroke make an almost 100% recovery. That's horrible. And I was really interested in that. So what I did is I wanted to go out and find out for myself. I think it's really important to have firsthand experience. So I went on the road and I spoke to these survivor groups, these, at hospitals, whoever would take me in. And I told people this, and this is a very hard thing sometimes for people to do because they have what we call avoidance issues. And I told them, I said, look, you have to be a part of the solution in your recovery. If you just simply put your hands in a doctor's hands, and I wasn't saying that to be mean or to be downplaying the role of a doctor, but I said, if you don't know how to ask the right kinds of questions and you are not a participant in your recovery, you will fall short. And that's exactly what's happening. So many people, and I think this is where we're talking right now, so many people put their hands in their care, in their body, and somebody else. And they say, okay, I don't want to take responsibility for myself as much as I want to find out where the next silver lining is or the next shiny object is. And I think that's part of the reason why some people just don't get better, period, because they're not willing to be a major participant in that journey. And that's my opinion.
I think, you know what, you're right. And there is a point where that you have to stop seeing the doctor and you have to start doing things on your own. Dr. Joe Dispenser, I'm sure that you've heard of him. He has people at his workshop that miraculous guy. He was blind since birth. He got to see. He actually started seeing. I mean, there's all these things happening, and the medical is not the answer. But did you think, Leo? What did you start to Did you have an aha moment where you realized what caused your stroke? I'm sure it had to do with mental and emotional. What was underlying that, caused that? Because remember, all these things don't happen. They first are a blockage of energy. They're first happening on an emotional level before they even hit the physical.
Yeah, you're right. Because what happened to me, because when I was in the hospital and they were having me do all these tests, they said, we can't find anything wrong with you. You shouldn't be here. And yet I was. So I went back. And again, this is a part of what people don't do. They avoid this because it's very uncomfortable for me to go start looking to say, okay, what are the reasons potentially that this happened to me? Why is that the case if I shouldn't be here? Well, at that time in my life, I was living life. I was bodybuilding. I had come back from a big layoff at an older age. I wanted to see if the body still had muscle memory. I was working 16 hours a day because I'm a workaholic. I was training like a wild man because when I get into it, I'm all in. I was living my life at that point I was just severely overtrained on every level. I was pushing the limits on every level and my body shut me down. And this is the reason why I'm telling you, when I'm saying dancing with death, I don't mean chronically. I was chronically living my life to an extreme level, and it was causing so much inflammation that's what partially took me down. And I had to do it. It was a big wake up moment for me, and that's when I started learning how to live my life, how to compartmentalize my life. I'm too emotional of a person to live a flat life. I can't be on a depressant. I can't live a flat life. I'm emotional. I have to feel stuff. So what I learned how to do was compartmentalize everything that I do. In other words, give it all the attention that I want in this area, but just don't do it day in and day out to where it causes an overtraining effect. In training, if you overtrain the body, your body will shut you down. You'll have an injury. You'll have what happened to me. You'll have something like this that'll happen to you. So yeah, I was part of the problem, and I had to fix that myself. No one else could fix that.
So, if I may interject that in Taoism, see, you're able to you were doing all that stuff, but you still were mental. You have to make that's the sacredness. You have to make your body your temple,
Yeah.
and communicate with your body. And that's what you're probably doing now. Had you went and noticed, hey, what's going on with,
Yep.
asked your body, you see, but you didn't. You were like, no. But
Yeah.
that's it's a good trait for a man in many ways. But all he has to do is remember, these Taoists were great warriors. The warriors of the Vikings, all of these warriors that went to war for like years at a time. They were eating, like, believe me, they weren't eating leaves or vegetables. They were eating the hearts of, actually, sometimes, the people they killed. The organs
Yeah.
that they were. And so if they felt like they had heart problems, they would, the shaman would say, eat the heart of the person. If they felt they needed kidneys, whatever. And this isn't happening in this society, but now you notice that it's not your ego from the mind. It's like, okay, do I need to rest? And then you communicate. Once you communicate with the body, my body's my best friend. And sometimes I go to get ready to work out, and then I think, oh no, I think I need to take a infrared sauna first, or I need to, or that's what I'm going to do, or I'm going to just stay home and do some kettlebell swings, and I'm not going to, on my rebound, I have incredible rebounder, which is number one for lymphatic system.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what I've done, and I wish I would have tied into it sooner because I never believed in that. Is every single morning. I'm not a guy who's big on meditating. I'm not.
Oh, really?
But what I started learning about was I come into my gym. I get up in the morning at 2:50, 10 minutes till 3 every morning, and I go down to my gym, and I'm in my gym by myself. And what I learned, I didn't know this. I just learned this just kind of by accident. I'm in my gym by myself. I am sitting down, and all of a sudden I started realizing, I just started relaxing. And when I got to that point, it was like all of a sudden, all these, I didn't try to think about anything. I just let energy flow into my body. And once I started doing that, I started realizing this is part of the success of now in my life, because I do that every morning. I tell people, look in the mirror or do something 10 minutes a day and just let the energy flow into you. Don't try to think it, because all the problems that you're having and all the solutions are there. You just have to relax. So we're going to leave it right there on relax, because I get a very relaxed feeling from talking. Your energy that you have, it gets me wound up. You also calm me down, if that makes any sense.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you coming on today. Tom Uzella knows fascinating people, and you're just one of those people that he knows. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you. And I have a site that's under construction, but it is sexysage.info.
Okay. And I'll be looking forward to seeing that. When do you think that'll be up?
Well, there's a one page that does give some information, and then it has my phone number and everything,
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Well, anyway, maybe one of these.
Hopefully I'll meet you.
I was going to say the same thing.
With Tom.
Yes. I'll say the same thing. Hopefully I meet you someday in person.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Namaste.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.